Good morning, Dan and Amy. A bit of a programming note. Amy and I are sitting in for Michael Medved today on his nationally syndicated show, so you can catch us, this afternoon online.
Yes.
And then it's rebroadcast at 10 p.m. On these airwaves.
That's Dan and Amy.
That is.
If you want 6 hours of, more than 7 hours.
4 plus the 3.
7 hours.
No one to carry. Yeah. All right.
7 hours. You know I don't do math on days that end in Y.
I do understand. And I mean, I'll tell you, this is pretty interesting. Amy, someday you could be like a big national star like Steve Moore on all the talkies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not me. I don't have the chops for it. But you, yes.
No.
Steve Moore, Wall Street Journal columnist, senior economist for CNN, economist for Heritage Foundation, all of the titles. Steve Moore joins us now. Thanks for joining us, Steve. Appreciate it.
Hi, guys. Good morning. And we remember the little people like me who helped you on the way up.
No.
That's my question.
No, we will not. Steve who?
That's a great show. I listened to that show. And,
it is.
So fantastic. I'm going to listen to you guys this afternoon, and I'll grade you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, it's a pleasure and an honor, of course. Now, Steve, on this tax reform proposal that we spoke about last week, some wrinkles. One, there's a couple. Let's take them in order. One is it's going to be from 7 rates to 3 rates, 12, 25, and 35, except there's going to be a 4th rate. What's up with that?
Well, there is some talk about a 4th rate of a higher rate for people who make over $2 or $3 or $4 million Steve Bannon used to talk a lot about this, about, could we have maybe a 44% rate for the multi-millionaires? And I remember when we were sitting in the White House, Larry Kudlow and I with Bannon, he suggested this. We almost fell off our chairs. We said, what are you talking about? First of all, you're never going to get, millionaires and billionaires to pay that tax. It's just, they're going to find ways to avoid paying taxes. That's what rich people do. And the whole concept of this tax reform is to get the tax rates down so it doesn't, have a negative effect on the economy, but also make it fair so everybody's paying the rate that they're supposed to be paying. So I think that 4th rate that you're talking about is a non-starter. I think it's a dumb idea. We want to have the lowest tax rates in the world and not raising any of the rates on anybody. And by the way, I don't like the idea of raising the 10% rate for low-income people to 12%. I think that's a stupid idea, too. That can be easily fixed. Actually, it's a little bit of a mythology for people who've heard about this because most of those people in the 10% rate today actually go down to 0% because they are taken off the income tax rolls completely.
Wow. So, and then everything will stay with the estate tax, correct? The elimination of the estate tax?
You bet.
Can you push back with that?
Mention that, Amy. I just wrote my column on that.
You did.
By the way, okay, here's your fiscal IQ question today.
Oh, boy.
You guys take a guess of how much money the federal government raises each year from the federal estate tax. And by the way, the federal government raises about $3.6 trillion a year. Guess how much of that money comes from the estate tax?
You just heard Amy. She couldn't add 4 plus 3.
That is
that's a tall order, Steve.
I'm going to play. Okay, so it's $3.6 trillion. What percentage of that comes?
There wasn't going to be any math, right?
Okay, all right. So $3.6 trillion annually, and what part of that is the estate tax? Revenue generated from the estate tax.
On a percentage basis. Why don't you do it on a percentage basis?
On a percentage basis?
It makes it easier. How about 1/10 of 1%?
Actually, you're pretty close. It's about $18 billion out of $3.6 trillion.
I was going to say
you were going to say $18
billion. But you said percentile.
Oh my God, you would have hit right on the nose. So yeah, but that's ridiculous. I mean, that's less than 1/2 of 1% of our revenue comes from the stupidest, unfairest tax. And I think about people like my father, who was a businessman. We grew up, as you know, in Chicago, and he was gone a lot when we were kids. He built up that business from scratch, and he was working 50, 60, 70 hours a week when I was a kid. He was traveling all over the world building up that business, and it became successful. He employed 50 to 100 people, and he became a millionaire. And he built up, invested well, and became a millionaire. And he, as you guys may know, I've talked about this before on your show. He died a couple of years ago, at 91 years old. And someone like that, should they have to? By the way, he paid his taxes every year. should someone like that have to give up, half of his lifetime earnings to the government when they die? I mean, I just think it's completely un-American.
It is. Government is not your progeny. That's exactly right.
Exactly. Exactly. By the way, Dan, one other thing. Did you know Sweden, the socialist, Mecca, and Russia, the former communist country, they just both recently abolished their death tax because they said, you know what, this is economically counterproductive. Because people, you know what, if you have a high estate tax, what people do is they die broke. And they go, if I can't leave my money to my kids and my grandkids, I'm not going to leave it to the IRS. I'm going to spend it all.
That seals it. The Jakobsen clan is moving to Stockholm. So let me ask you another part about this that's in controversy. We talked to.
By the way, just one other thing on the estate tax. You got my blood boiling on this one now. The left doesn't even care that doesn't raise any money. And people say, oh, well, this is a great way to get all this money out of Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and all these, billionaires, the Koch brothers. They're not going to pay any estate tax. They've got the high-priced lawyers and tax attorneys who they put all their money in trust. None of that money. The Kennedys never paid any estate tax. The Rockefellers never paid this tax. It shocks the little guy, that made it rich, that all of a sudden when they realize when they die, they're going to have to fork over 50% of their earnings.
This is, of course, this is all just class envy politics. But, I mean, you have Democrats who will privately concede that, I agree with the idea of lowering the corporate tax rate. But if this comes from the Trump administration or this is the Republican proposal, I'm voting against it because I just have to, hew the party line. So they know what they're doing. Of course, you're right. But now on the Republican side, there's some pushback. We talked to Congressman Peter Roskam, of course, from your old home state of Illinois, one of the high tax states. They don't like that idea of eliminating the state and local tax deduction as part of this plan.
Well, I like it a lot. I mean, in fact, that was when we originally talked about this plan when I was working for Trump, many, many months ago, 18 months ago or so. I was the one who really advocated this because, look, why should people in relatively lower tax states that have efficient government services have to pay higher taxes to subsidize states like New York and California and New Jersey and, unfortunately, Illinois that have inefficient services and tax your people through the roof? By the way, if we get rid of that state and local tax deduction, you know what's going to force Illinois to do? Cut their taxes! Yeah.
Well, I don't know if there's anything that could force Illinois to do that, but yes.
Yeah, well,
nice theory.
But look, I feel very strongly about this that the low tax states should not have to subsidize the high tax states for their inefficient government services, and I think we're going to put a cap on this. Of people who may if liberals love to talk about how they want to tax rich people. Well, let's take away this deduction for people who make over $1 million and make them pay the tax at the federal and the state level. And by the way, that's the way you get the tax rates down. We want to push the rates down as low as possible so we're competitive again in the rest of the world. And by the way, and I am very worried about how we get to 50 votes in the Senate. I'm trying to count these votes, and you've got Rand Paul, my friend Rand Paul, who says he's going to potentially vote against the budget resolution. We have to pass the budget resolution to get this tax cut passed. And now Senator Corker of Tennessee yesterday said, well, maybe, $1.5 trillion is too big of a tax cut after he had made a deal, that we were going to have that number. So this isn't going to be easy, and it would be wonderful if we could get at least one of your two dingbat senators from Illinois that wanted to cut taxes.
Forget that. Yeah. Sorry, Steve. We're not going to be able to help you with that one. So, look at the...
No wonder Illinois has such high taxes. Well, the state just seems to love taxes. And if we could just get one of those two, Durbin, and who's the other Illinois senator?
Duckworth.
Duckworth.
Oh, yeah. I think I'll put her in the no column.
Yeah. We're not really a state anymore, Steve. We're more like an onion story.
Somebody told me, I heard a rumor, I want you to, that Rauner is going to or has signed a bill that authorizes taxpayer-funded abortion.
Yep, the abortion bill.
I hate to break this to you, too. I know every time we're breaking news for you about what's happening in Illinois. Last time it was sanctuary state, and this time, yes, he is the first governor in U.S. history to initiate abortion on demand, taxpayer funding, opening up a new open-ended spending program in a state with $16 billion in unpaid bills. That is correct.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, you've got plenty of money to pay for that, right? By the way, Bruce Rauner, if you're listening to the show, I know you do. You've been a long-time friend. I've been a long-time admirer, but shame on you. Shame on you. Taxpayer funding for abortions. Unbelievable.
That's what we say. Steve Moore, Heritage Foundation economist, Wall Street Journal columnist. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Okay, guys. Good luck on Mike Medved. I'll be watching.
All right.
Listening, I should say.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
And
let's take a couple of calls here.
Well, we want to thank him for joining us on our Turnkey.pro answer line.
Indeed, we do.
Okay.
Lucy in the south suburbs.
Good morning. Listen, as much as I love Steve Moore, I have to do a little pushback here. He talks about high-tax states having to subsidize well-run states. Well, what about the high-tax states like Illinois that have to subsidize states like where the hurricanes hit, that we have to constantly keep rebuilding these towns where they're hit and destroyed, or subsidizing education for international students? Or how about subsidizing welfare? People that never, ever collect 1 penny in welfare are subsidizing that in their taxes for people who do.
Well, that's a fair point, Lucy. Thanks for the call. This is the point that Peter Roska made, which is don't forget Illinois is a net donor state to the federal government, right? We send $1 to the federal government. We get something on the order of 75 cents back. So that's the argument that he made in defense of his opposition to this elimination of the deduction as well. The problem you get into with any of this stuff is because we've kind of lost our grip on federalism. We even lost the understanding for federalism. There's a piece by Annie Lowry in The Atlantic, these dum-dums over the Atlantic that think they're intellectuals. Are states really more efficient than the federal government? That's not the point of federalism. Read Federalist 42. The point of federalism is the prevention of tyranny, the concentration of too much power in too few hands from a distant government. But the problem you get into with all of this is people are being bribed back and forth with their own money. And the government at every level is kind of the middleman taking the vig. And so, right, you can make the argument Lucy made, which is several legitimate points. The argument that Roska made is a legitimate point. But Steve Moore has a point, too. It's just kind of your angle of incidence with respect to these, scams. Sean in Elmwood Park.
Stephen Moore is pushing a slap and tickle. They focus on what you want. I don't want my daddy to pay inheritance tax. But for you people earning money, there's a new tax bracket. This is more progressive tax nonsense. And you hear it in Stephen. He's interested in revenue. That's what he's interested in. He's not pushing back on the progressive tax. In fact, he sounds more like J.B. Pritzker. All that's missing is a double-sized sport. Yes, he does. It's a progressive tax he wants to implement to pay for the spending. He doesn't want to starve the beast through the true fair tax, which is a flat tax for all of us to pay. Listen to what he's saying to you. He eluded the fact there is another tax bracket for the people that really do make the world go round.
He's opposed to that. He's opposed to that. He's opposed to. Hey, wait a second. He is opposed to the fourth bracket. He said so. Yes, that's what he said.
So how do you push the whole bill if you say you're opposed to a key component of it?
Well,
he's just pushing the bill.
Well, just don't ascribe to Steve Moore positions he doesn't have. He is opposed to raising from 10 to 12 on the bottom. He's opposed to the fourth bracket. That's what he just said.
But you know this. Once it's there, it's going nowhere. He's pushing to pass the whole bill. So I hope Rand Paul holds strong, and I hope others do.
Yeah, okay.
Stop compromising with tyranny. It doesn't go away. It only grows.
All right, Sean, you had me at slap and tickle.